Well, here we are. We're beginning as, if you've listened to my introduction before you started listening to this particular presentation here, you'll know that we're going to be looking at, for test number 3, we're going to be looking at chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, as I mentioned, we've already gone through chapter 9 in class, but I didn't do knows and be familiar with and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do a presentation for you, a video for you, for each of those 4 chapters, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which will be posted into Canvas. So chapter 9 is a chapter on health insurance. So let's get started with that particular chapter. One of the problems I have with online is that spelling. I've got to work harder trying to spell things correctly since it's going to be recorded, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. I am looking at my Chapter 9 handout. This is the same handout that you probably already have a copy of that you got after we took test number 2, but it's also online for you in Canvas. Health insurance is critical. You know, I've done my little, I guess I better put over here right now, because we're going to be using this probably throughout these chapters. Excuse my back, as long as you can hear me. You know, we talk about you being a personal financial planner, and we talk about years into the future. We do financial goals. We set financial goals. We set financial goals for ourselves. One financial goal we're always going to be setting is our retirement. During the time we're setting financial goals and doing personal financial planning, what we hope to do and what we intend to do and what we should do is increase our wealth over our lifetime, over our career. And there's a number of ways to do that. We'll actually be getting into that a little bit in these next several chapters. But the most important thing we're doing right now is you don't want something to come up and steal your wealth. And so that being the case, what we've got to do is we've got to protect our wealth. One of the main ways we protect our wealth is through insurance. And the kind of insurance that we're going to look at in chapter 9 is health insurance. So this is how important are insurances? Incredibly important. There are certain risks and there are certain things that you just can't afford to take because you could wipe out all or most of your wealth. So you want to give that risk to somebody else, and that somebody else are health insurance or insurance companies. In this particular case, health insurance. Okay, let's get started. The next best thing to good health is good health insurance. You have got to have a way to not pay for health expenses. That's kind of a weird way to say that. But going to the doctor, going to the hospital, rehabilitation, drugs, anything you have to do in the world of health. You know, health could be something where you get ill or you have an accident. One thing you can't do is pay for it yourself. You can't write it out of your checkbook, because health insurance is incredibly, incredibly expensive. So you can have a health insurance policy. You can utilize some of those older people, Medicare, Medicaid, which is a state-run, federally assisted program for those without insurance. You can go to the exchange through the Affordable Care Act. You may have a wealthy uncle that owns a hospital and a bunch of doctors, and you can get everything free. Some way, however you do it, you've got to have a means by which you do not have to pay for health insurance expenses out of pocket, so to speak, because it can zap your wealth in a hurry. Okay, and I think I mentioned something a second ago. Illness or accidents can hurt you 2 ways. One way they can hurt you is they can hurt you from the point of view that you've got all those medical expenses. The other way is that you may not be able to work and earn your income. So you've really got kind of 2 losses there that can happen. So I'd be familiar with the fact that the best thing to good health is good health insurance. I'd be familiar with, that medical expenses can be caused by both accidents and illnesses. And not only do you have the expenses of that, but you have the expenses of lost wages. Okay, let's look at some of the ways that we can get health insurance. I'm looking right down my handout, private health insurance plans, group health insurance. When you go to work at that particular job, maybe it's your career job, it's a job you're really excited about. When you're looking at going to work somewhere, check out what benefits they have. A huge benefit is health insurance. If they provide health insurance where they pay for your health insurance or they pay a portion of your health insurance, usually those health insurance plans can be quite good, and it's quite a savings to you. As I've told you in class, I'm a member of the Louisiana State Group Benefits Program. They pay 3/4 of my and my wife's coverage. It's wonderful insurance, and even though it's kind of expensive, the fact that I'm paying 1/4 of it is a whole lot less expensive than what it might be. So group health is where you have one master policy. You have an agreement, a master policy where all those folks that are a part of that, are covered under that one master group policy. It's a great way to have health insurance in a lot of cases. Now, private health insurance, when you're not in a group, there's two types of private health insurance that's not group insurance. One is called indemnity. See there? Trying to spell right. Don't need to be doing. Indemnity insurance is where you buy insurance, and this is you right here. You buy insurance from a healthcare someone that sells health insurance. So this is an insurance provider. All right? And you buy whatever insurance you want, whatever health care plan that you want. Good one, I hope. And then you go to the doctor. You go to a health care provider, somebody that is a doctor, a hospital that you have to go to. Then the folks that has your insurance, that you bought your health insurance from, they pay your bills that you ran up from the health care provider in the amount equal to what your policy calls for. So whatever reimbursement, whatever limits your policy has, that policy will pay for your will it pay for all of it? I'm not sure. It pays for whatever your policy that you bought allows to be paid. So that's an indemnity. Now the other way to do this would be what's called managed care. Managed care means that what you do is you contract directly with a health care provider. You contract directly with Vantage. You contract directly with the health care providers themselves, the hospital, the doctors, and this sort of thing. And you pay a premium, and then when you're ill, you go to these health care providers, and they provide that coverage for you. Now, there's different kind of you've heard of probably HMOs, health maintenance organizations. I'm a member of what's called a PPO, a preferred provider. I couldn't think of it. Preferred provider. Okay, so you have different kinds: HMOs, PPOs, EPOs, but you've probably heard those terms. What that is, those are different types of healthcare providers. Vantage would be a great example of an HMO. If you are insured with Vantage, I mean, you pretty much have all the coverages you need. The hospital, I mean, it's all through Vantage. Now, in a PPO like I'm in, with state group benefits, I have a list of doctors and hospitals throughout the state of Louisiana that have joined into the PPO plan. They say, we want to be a part of state group benefits. We want to provide medical care for your members. And so if they meet the qualifications and they agree to the things that state group benefits says they have to agree to, they can get in as into our PPO plan. And we have lots and lots of folks. So that's managed care. Probably got way too far out on that, but it's two types of private coverage. Then you have Medicare. Medicare is for those old people 65 and older. I always like to say this, Medicare is not something the government gives you once you get 65. When you pay your Social Security taxes every month, a part of that is for Medicare. So you've paid for that coverage. But that's hospitalization, that's medical coverage for people that are 65 or older. Medicaid is a state-administered federal program to help folks that are underinsured or uninsured. And then you have workers' compensation. I think you know what workers' comp is. Workers' comp is if you are injured on the job, then workers' compensation will pay for in Louisiana, it pays for your injuries, it pays for your drugs, it pays for your rehab. It also pays a portion of your compensation, your wages, until you return or until you're able to return. So that's kind of the different plans. Now, the Affordable Care Act fits in this as an option, but that's undergoing so much change right now, and there's so much talk about how that's going to work. You can go onto the exchange now, and if you're eligible, you can get I think there's still a bronze plan, a silver plan, a gold plan. That may have changed some. I haven't checked lately. But the main thing I want to leave you with, as far as this is concerned, set something up for you and your family where you don't have to pay for it yourself. You are covered some other way. Okay, let's look a little bit at some other things. Medical expense coverage. If you get an insurance plan, if you buy medical insurance, well, what's normally going to be covered in medical insurance? And it's in kind of really small print here, but what's going to be covered? Well, you're going to have physician coverage. There's going to be a coverage when you go to, for your physician. There's going to be hospital coverage. There's going to be surgical coverage. And then there's what's called major medical coverage. Now, here's how that major medical works. And one of the things I've got to try to do in this video is the same thing I tried to do when I actually presented this, and that is not go crazy deep. And I've already gotten a little deeper on a couple of things than I probably should have. In a health insurance, if you have health insurance, it's gonna pay some or all for your physician, for the hospital, for surgery, for lab work, test, that type of thing. And there's what's called major medical. Now here's how this normally works. You're going to have to probably pay some deductibles. You know what that means. If you go into the doctor, a copay or deductible, that says, hey look, you're going to have to pay some and then we pay the rest or whatever. And so how that works is you go in and you pay your deductible. And then most insurance companies, they have what they call a co-insurance where let's say they pay 90%, you pay 10%. Okay, you go in, you pay your deductibles. After paying the deductible, the bill is still $500. So of that $500, this co-insurance, you're going to pay 50 of that, and your insurance company is going to pay 450 of that. However, once you have spent so much money out of pocket, in a given year, once you have spent so much money for hospitalization, for medical coverage, which could include hospitalization, let's say once you've spent $5,000, then major medical says the insurance company will reimburse at 100%. That's what up to maybe $1 million, $2 million. That's what major medical is. And so that's pretty important. So that's kind of the way. Now, are there different types of hospital insurance? Yes, but that's pretty much the way that it's going to work. Okay, I've got my book here pretty close. Let me take it. Probably get off this stool because I'm spending more time getting on and off the stool than I am doing anything else. I want to talk a little bit, but I want to see if there's anything that I missed. Preferred provider organizations, PPOs, that would not come to me. So that's what those are, HMOs, PPOs. We've done that. Medicare and Medicaid, we talked about that. We did good with those. I think what I wanted to chat with you about a little bit, the types of insurance, medical expense coverage, hospitalization, surgical, major medical, we talked about all of that. Sometimes it can even include dental coverage. But something I do want to mention, I didn't think about. There's something that I think I put in your handout. Comprehensive major medical. If you buy comprehensive major medical, that pretty much wraps all this into one. You put all of the different coverages, including the major medical, into one package. They'll call that comprehensive major medical. Okay. And then some of what I wanted to chat with about a little bit is some things that are usually done to try to contain the cost containment provisions. I think that's what I put on our handout. You want to keep the cost down. Your insurance company sure wants to keep the cost down. What happens is if the cost of insurance medical coverage keeps rising and rising and rising, what's going to rise with it? The amount that you have to pay. Either you have to pay as premiums, you have to pay as deductibles, if you have to pay in some manner. So there's some things that normally happen, cost containment provisions that usually are put into place when it relates to medical type coverage. Number one, pre-admission certification. You can't just decide one day, I'm going to go to the hospital. I don't feel pretty good. I'm just going to go in, check in. Hey, I'm just going to I need a break. I need a break. So normally before you can, now if it's an emergency, obviously you can go. But before you decide to go to the hospital, most of your insurance plans are going to say, you've got to have a pre-admission. There's got to be an approval which shows a need before you go in. Continued stay review. You know, this place is a whole lot better than I thought it was. I'm going to spend a couple extra weeks here. You can't do that. There should be, normally based upon what your illness is, you should stay so long. If you stay longer than that, or for some reason they want you to, the doctor's got to certify when they want to keep you there longer. Second, surgical opinions. If you have to have a particular surgery, you may want, and the insurance company may want, let's get a second opinion on that, just to be sure. And waiver of coinsurance. We talked about coinsurance down here, which is where you pay a percentage, like 10%, the insurance company pays 90%. Well, let's say you could go into the hospital and have a procedure done. But let's say you also could do that as an outpatient. You could go, have that done as an outpatient and go home. You never have to go into and be admitted to the hospital. That's a lot cheaper to have it done that way. So a lot of times what the insurance companies will say is, if you do it that way, we'll pay 100% of it. We'll pay 100% of that particular cost. Okay, so that's kind of some things that insurance companies do to try to hold down the price of insurance. Deductibles, we've already talked about deductibles a little bit. I think that's a lot of things. Now, one other thing that I want to mention that I put down here on the bottom right-hand side of this particular page, and that is disability income. I mentioned to you earlier, when you have, if you have an accident or you are ill, you're going to have a lot of medical expenses. Those expenses should be the treating of you, it could be drug expenses, it could be rehabilitation expenses. But in addition to those, you may have lost wages. So what you can do, you can purchase disability income insurance. What that does is that if you buy that insurance, and you can buy it for differing amount, but it means that you, as long as you are not able to return to work, doctors certify you're not able to return to work, then you will draw so much per week or so much per month, depending on what your disability income policy was for. And that way, that gives you an additional amount of money while you're disabled and can't return to work. Okay, I think that's a fairly decent overview, especially since we've already done this once. But I think that's a fairly decent overview of health insurance. We didn't try to get real particular with stuff because there's so many different ones out there. What can I tell you? Have some way to protect your wealth from accident or illness, aside from having to pay for it out of pocket. That's the number one thing. And then number two, pick the best way that you want to do it. Whether you may use Medicaid, you may be eligible for Medicare, you may do an indemnity plan, a managed health plan, but however you do it, come up with something that's good to protect you. And then you might also want to consider some type of a disability income insurance for your lost wages. Okay, I hope I'll go back after I get through with this and review this chapter just to make sure I didn't leave something out that was really important. And I'm going to go back. My makeup folks are back there. My hairstylists are back there to get me all ready for chapter number 10. So I don't know when you might watch chapter number 10, but I'm probably getting ready to do chapter number 10 in about 5 minutes. So in keeping with Professor Pierce, reading a loud noise to know there's been a break in chapters, and we're now finishing up chapter 9, I will do our closing clap and be done with chapter 9, and I'll see you chapter 10. Thank you.